All right, welcome to Revit 2019 Demo 20. We're going to continue from Demo 19. This lecture for Demo 20 is Foundation Plan. We're going to duplicate with detailing level 1. So duplicate view with detailing. And we're going to rename this view to Foundation Plan. Enter. We want to go to our properties and adjust our view range. So we're going to adjust our view range to start at 0, cut at -1 foot 4 inches, and we want to set the bottom to -2 foot 6 inches and -2 foot 6 inches for the view depth. So you're going to hit OK. It is going to flag this warning that the room tag is outside of its room. We're going to go ahead and hit Move to Room. And now we're in this view. Now notice that these tags are illustrated here. If we go back to level 1, they're in the proper location. So what we can do is go ahead and just delete. Actually, let's check level 1. Yep, it hasn't gone away. So foundation, we'll go ahead and delete this. It's saying a room tag was deleted, but the corresponding room still exists. That's fine. It does still exist. Now, we don't want to see windows in this view or plan regions. So what we're going to do is VH the windows and VH this, actually we'll VH this plan view. We can delete it actually entirely. It duplicated it on this new view. So I just went ahead and deleted it. So we just deleted that. I did hide windows, I believe, so I'll go ahead and turn those back on even though we won't be seeing them. But just to check to make sure that's in good shape. I can also delete these center lines, so I'm just kind of tidying up the view. So the goal of the cut is, if I go to this section, is that I can see what's going on in this foundation plan up to the just this top level. So I can see where things are happening. And so now my foundation plan is cutting through that sweep that we had generated. And now I want to adjust and create some lines. So we're going to go to Manage, Additional Settings, Line Styles. I want to create a new subcategory to lines, and it's going to be named Found EXT, and I want it to be a line weight of 8, and it's solid, and that's fine. So we're going to hit OK. And now I'm going to go to Annotate, Detail Line, and you'll notice that I have found EXT. Now, I want to use a pick arrow or line, so I can draw either way that I want. The tricky part is the garage to the house. So the solid line is where the wall is on the garage side, and so we can't see that at this point in time. So we're going to make reference planes of where the drop is. So what we can do is we can go to level 1 and create a reference plane, RP for reference plane, and we can draw a reference plane where this wall line ends. Now, technically I need 2 because this wall goes back. There's a depth to it. But for now, what I'll do is I'll adjust, because I know that this edge of that curb is to this core wall. So I'm just going to draw from this interior core wall out, and I'm going to name this garage wall reference plane. It's always good to get in the habit of labeling the reference planes just so you know where they're at. Now if I go back to the foundation plan, I can see where that wall's at. So garage wall reference plane. Now from here, I can go back to the detail line or type DL, and I could select that reference plane. And my thin lines is on, so I don't want that on. But now I've got a solid line that I can create similar from and continue to this edge. Now I want to make sure these are aligned. I didn't align them very well, so AL, so TL can turn on thin lines and off, and then AL to align. So I've got it all lined up. So we'll turn TL back on, and you can see that the thickness is there. And now what we want to do is we want to adjust our view range again. So we're going to adjust the view range, and I want the top at 1 foot. So this is another way I could have done it without a reference plane. I could have set this view range to 1 foot at the top, and then I could set my cut plane at 1 foot. And now I'm going to see where that wall is. So you can see where I've adjusted that. So I actually don't have it completely correct because the face of the wall is here. So what I want to do is align, I'll hit TL again, and I'm going to align to this edge core. So I'm going to align this to this. And then I'll go ahead and pull this back, and we'll just see what that looks like when we set our view range back. So we're going to go back in. We saw where the wall was, so we're going to adjust that view range back down. So we're going to go to 0 feet, -1 foot 4 inches, hit apply OK. And so we're roughly in there. So this can actually go back to here for now. And we'll go ahead and turn thin lines on. So I've got roughly where that wall's at, and it's labeled out correctly. So annotate detail lines. And what I can do is hidden. And I want to place hidden lines where the footings underground are. So I want to VH the structural foundations to see the hidden lines. So if I hit VH here, those are gone. But what I really want to do is I want to pick line. So I'm going to hit detail line, and I'm going to pick line to all of these foundation walls so that they're shown. And it's just drawing right over the tops of walls. And now if I hit and select that structural foundation, I'm trying to tab select it at this point in time. There it is. So if you have to tab select, and sometimes it's kind of hard to select it. So if that's the case, just go ahead and window it, hit your filter, choose structural foundations, and we're going to hit VH. And now you can see I've got roughly where those footings were. So I can see those hidden lines. Now the thing is, I really want to see the outside edge as the foundation exterior in this solid color. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to select all these exterior lines and change them to foundation exterior. And so now I have them adjusted to foundation exterior. And I can actually trim this line to this line to get that edge. And then I can continue this line out. So I've used a reference plane, I've kind of adjusted the view range a bit, and now I'm really fine-tuning this. Now, something you'll notice is I don't have my patio slabs determined of where they're at, and that's something that we could go in and do. I don't have the curbs on, so if I turn the structural foundation back on, VV structural foundation, you'll notice that now I've got everything kind of in the right spot. And now I did the curbs, so we adjusted those. Now what I could have done is I could have set this view range as well to 0 for the top, -2 foot cut. And if we hit apply and OK, let's see if we can see the curb lines. I don't see them. Structural foundation, we're going to turn this off. I do see them of where I had originally cut, so that's fine. I'm satisfied with that. I think that's in good shape. All right, so continuing forward, what we want to do is we want to adjust our view range so we can see the walls above. So we're going to set our cut plane at 1 foot, and we're going to set our offset for the top at 4 feet, and we're going to hit apply and OK. And we can see the bugs, that's fine for now. Mostly what I want to see is this profile wall of the walls that are above this foundation. Now I don't have a patio or anything like that, and in the particular example inside of what we have for foundation plan, it's showing as if there's some back patio or front patio, so for that you're going to ignore that. But what we're going to do for this class is hit detail line. So we're going to hit DL, and we're going to trace using that foundation exterior. We're going to trace also the interior walls. And so I want to kind of just go over this top wall and get these kind of drawn out. And so I'm just tracing right around these edges and creating the interior profile of that wall. And I'm going to continue over some stuff, and I want to leave areas blocked out for where the doors are. I'm not concerned about windows, so we'll just kind of keep going through. I'm mostly looking at whatever areas where there's going to be a door or some framing for a door. And in construction, you'll see that if you go to a job site, you'll see that they'll cut or potentially pour this in a way that allows for doors. So we're going to hit back to the view range, or view range, and we're going to set this down to 0, and this at that -1 foot 4 inch. Hit apply OK, and now you'll notice I might have to tidy up a few things, but I've got those profiles of where that's going to be poured. And that's very important because now I can start to see kind of what's above. I haven't laid out any of my patios, and I could do that. I could technically come out here and lay this out, but we're not going to do that for right now. We're mostly focused on just this foundation plan for this house. And now what we want to do is we want to add some foundation notes. And some foundation notes can be added by flipping to page 388 in the Gallatin College Revit book. So we're going to do that real quick. So I'll be right back. So you actually want to flip to page 407 in the Gallatin College book, and you're looking for the foundation plan checklist. And reading through the foundation plan checklist, this is really going to articulate what I'm looking for your Home for Mr. Peterson project. So let's go over this real quickly. Dimension, location of foundation footings with a class dimension style. Overall dimensions, garage to house footings display correctly with hidden line, solid line, hidden line. The solid line would be where the garage drop is. So in this particular example, you can see right here. I'm going to pull this Word document over so you can take a look. So we'll go ahead and open this up. So I'm just reading off from 407. We want to ensure that we have section marks. We don't want elevation marks. So let's just kind of move this out of the way one more time. Take a look. I have elevation marks, so I'm just going to highlight them and hit VH. I do want the section marks, so those are going to stay. We'll pull this back over. Interior bearing wall footings represented with hidden lines 12-inch wide. We've done that for the interior bearing walls. Exterior footings represented with a solid line for exterior of slab and a hidden line for edge of footing underground. We've done that. Block out for garage doors displayed and noted. So I'm going to minimize this real quick. You'll notice that these are blocked out for the garage doors. We also blocked them out for the doors and for the back door. And so what we're going to do is go back into page 407. It says that we want to note it. So we actually, exterior footings represented with a solid line for exterior of slab and a hidden line for edge of footing underground. We want to block out for garage doors displayed and noted. So right here is block out for 8-foot garage door. So that's a note we want. So we can literally just copy that right out of the book and head back to Revit, and we'll add an annotation. So we'll come in here, add text, and we'll say from here, Control V. And now this size might be too large. So let's shoot for an 1/8. So we'll change this to 1/8-inch aerial. Didn't change, but now it did. And I just want to, I don't need to show number 1, I just want that. And I'll kind of center it in this garage for now, and I actually might want to go a little smaller. Let's try 3/32 for now. And so I can adjust my arrows. I can also add another leader line on the right, and then I can adjust where that's pulling from here. So if I want that left and this to be right, I can really adjust how this is displayed. So if I'm too low and the text isn't centered, I probably want to go up a little bit higher, and we'll just do something like that. And so I'm blocking out for 8-foot garage door. So that's what I'm doing. So we'll go back to 407, and it says north arrow, proper direction, reference site plan. And we did that in a few examples back. So if we go to the site plan, we can actually select the north arrow, and we can Control C and go to modify, which we're in. And I had to click off of it and back on it and then off again. But what's happening is once I'm back on, the paste menu shows up. I can also go up here to modify and paste a line to a selected view. And I want to paste that to the foundation plan. So we're going to go back to the foundation plan, and you'll notice that my north arrow is set up correctly. And I'll put this down in the lower left-hand corner for now. Go back to the notebook for the foundation plan checklist. And I want to look at what concrete notes it wants. It wants all of these notes. So what we could do is I'm going to copy these for now, and I'm going to create a legend. And we'll get a little bit more into legends a little bit later. I could also create a note block. For this one, we'll just start with a legend. And we're just going to call this concrete notes. Let's check what it said here. Yeah, concrete notes. And I'm not worried about the scale right now, but we'll leave it at what it's set to. And then I'll just paste, I won't just paste there. I have to draw a text box first. So we're going to hit text, turn off leader, text, turn off leader. You can't turn off leader unless you select no leader. And we can draw a box. And I'll just go ahead and paste those notes in there. And then I can adjust this value to get it to appear how I want it to appear. And that looks about right for me. I was just hitting escape and it was throwing some errors there. But now under legend, I have concrete notes. So what I could do is I could go back to the foundation plan, take a look. It looks like I pasted this twice, so we'll delete that out. Just pay attention to that because sometimes that will happen. So now what I can do is start to create the foundation sheet. So if I create the foundation sheet, let's look at the book and see what it's requested to be. If I scroll up to the assignment, it'll give me a list of all the sheets I'm looking for. So that's not the right assignment. This is it. I don't see foundation plan is the second sheet. Let's see what we called it in a later see foundation plan checklist. I'm just scrolling through the book. All right, so I found the sheet list. It's from demo 6. What I wanted to have created were all of these, and I didn't do that from demo 6, so that's why I was struggling here. So what I'm going to do is go through and build these real quick. So bear with me for a moment. So what I've decided to do is create a legend. So we're going to create a legend called sheet list. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create a text block. And we're going to paste that sheet list into the text block. And we'll know which sheets that I'm looking for this assignment. So A100, we're going to go ahead and create a new sheet on 22 by 34. And we're going to call this one, rename A100 slab/foundation plan. And we'll actually reduce off plan here. And now I have that sheet made. So now I'm going to put the foundation plan on the sheet. And I have it set to 3/16 for right now. That's fine. I can bump it up to 1/8 or 1/4. Quarter is going to size it up larger. And then I can pull in some of these notes. So I could actually pull in the note block for concrete notes. And I can turn the view title off. So this little view title that's here, I don't really want to see it. So if I edit the type, I can say show title, no. Hit apply, hit OK. And now it's just the notes that I wanted to see. So that kind of helps lay this thing out. I can also go in and look at the sheet list now. So if I need to reference this legend for a future lecture and I'm missing a sheet, this is going to help me do that. One thing is I can adjust these values to show up how I want them. And so we can really kind of drill this thing out. I don't want this shown up like that. So if I expand this out further, it's going to show up correctly. So this is the list that I'm looking for this semester. So A100, 200, 300, 400, all the way out to 900. This will change a little bit towards the end of the semester because we'll be looking for the schematic drawings. So all of the sketch drawings and presentation sheets, we'll go ahead and create a list for that. But this gets us kind of honed in at what I'm looking for. So at least for this demo, if we're missing a sheet, we can come back and adjust it as needed. I don't actually want this to be 100. I want this to be 101. And we're going to follow the same naming convention as what we did here. So this is just the series of 100. 100 would be where the notes would exist on this. But since we have a small enough set, we can put the notes on the sheet for now. So these are the notes that I'm looking for. If we bounce back to the assignment page, which I believe was 140s, we'll head over to page 140. So it turns out it's page 153. So 153 has the notes on it. And we're going to go ahead and just follow along and add notes for blockouts for openings. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look out for different areas of things that I'll be using. In this particular case, this 5-inch concrete slab, 6-inch below house slab over 5-inch gravel fill slope, 1/4 inch minimum per foot for drainage. I can put this note in the center of my drawing. So all I'm doing is I'm on the sheet, I'm double clicking in, and I'm starting to cut, copy, and paste these notes. And what's going to happen is we'll place the text and paste it, and then just throw some leaders in. And these leaders can then, we'll hit this little plus, add right side arc leader, add left side arc leader, and now I've got that shown for that slab. Now there's a few other notes. This particular note was note number 1. I don't want the numbers next to the notes. It's illustrated like that in the training book. That's not actually correct. So we're not going to follow that mentality or that way of doing it, but we'll continue through 5-inch concrete slab over 5-inch sand fill. We're not using this one, so we can delete that note out. And you'll notice that it just renumbers the notes in order. We're also not using a 2-foot 8-inch garage door, but we are using potentially 2-foot 8-inch doors. So I'm going to go ahead and create another note by just double clicking back into the plan, hit text. I don't want the leader, so just remember you can turn that off up here. I'm going to paste that note in, and now I want the leader in. So I'm going to select the note. I had to hit escape a couple times, select the note again, add the arrow. So we're going to kind of get that laid out where it goes. Notice I'm trying to avoid that section line. And I'm okay with it not being on the plan itself. It can be slightly off the plan. In the example, he has it drawn with it on the actual concrete. The reason for that is probably for dimensioning. So however you want to do it is fine with me. But I'm cool either way. Like if you want it out here, just make sure it's not interfering with any section marks or section lines. So I don't want to see this section in this view or this section or this section. So I'm going to hide these elements. But notice I can still see this section. So that's super helpful. Now, what I want to do is I want to start dimensioning. So we're going to do some linear dimensions. These linear dimensions are going to continue from the outside walls, and I'm going to start by dimensioning rough openings. It's maintained the dimension that we created earlier, and so I'm just going through and dimensioning to rough openings. And what this is creating is basically a plan so that somebody could construct this with the correct openings. And then I'm going to do overall wall lengths. So I'm going to do something like that. and then I'm going to do the other final overall. So I've kind of got that laid out there. Now, this gets a little dicey, so you can pull this out to clean it up, and the dimensioning makes it really easily. All I did was hit DI and started dimensioning to the lines. And so I'm going to do those overalls and this overall, and it snaps. And we're going to dimension to openings on this north wall. I just selected the wrong one, but I'll show you how we can fix that right now. I can select this and drag to the outside, and it'll update. Now I want to just do an overall. Oops, made the same mistake again. And then we'll continue on this final wall. Now this final wall is a bit easier. We will go to the concrete slab here just for showing what's going on. And we'll do the final overall. We'll bump this arrowhead out, the section head out, and now we've got roughly a finished foundation plan. So now we're going to move into callouts. In section 4, which is this section here, or section 4 here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a view callout. So we're going to go view, callout, and we want to just, we're not going to hit any drop down, it's just going to be a rectangular callout. And then in the properties, we're going to adjust this to a wall section. And we're going to create the callout to cover the footing area up to a bit above level 2. So if you look over here, we're going to do something like this, and we're going to place it. And you'll notice that it creates the callout in under the wall section. So it's in the wall section area. So we're going to select the callout, right click, go to view, and we're going to change the level to medium. And you'll notice that this wall isn't stacked correctly, so I can align it. That's just because this is the wrong type. Another option is you can hit MA, which is match properties or match type, and you can match that type. So I just matched that type wall. Now you want to change the detail level to medium, so don't forget to do that, because that's going to show a bit more detail in this view. And then we want to set the scale at a 1/2 inch equals 1 foot, which it was defaulted to, so that's good. And then we now have a shell of the area we need to detail with some nice information already there. What we do now will be 2D and not shown in the other views. So let's place a 2x6 treated sill plate at the base of the wall on the top of the slab. So we're going to go to Annotate, Detail Component, and we're going to hit Load Family, and we're going to go to Detail Items. Under Detail Items, you're looking for Division 6 Wooden Plastic, and there's tons of stuff in these libraries, but we're looking for wood framing. So these numbers up front are CSI master format. We'll get into that a little bit later, but for now, just look for wood framing. Under wood framing, we're going to go to nominal cut lumber section. So nominal cut lumber section. We're going to hit open. We want to select the, notice this is a type catalog. So it's similar to what we had seen with Windows. We're going to select a 2x4, a 2x6, a 2x8, and a 2x10, and a 2x12, and a 4x4, a 4x6, and a 4x8. If you I'm holding control to select these, but if you accidentally select a few that you don't want, you can just keep holding control and reselect them. So I'm going to hit OK, and they're going to load in. The first one that loads in is the 2x4, except this is a 2x6 wall. So we want to use 2x6, and I'm going to hit the space bar, and the space bar flips that piece of lumber, which is a 2-dimensional component, and it also snaps in place. So you can also use the arrow keys to bump the 2x6 into place, and you can use the align command to get them perfect. They should fit perfectly because they're nominally cut. So I'm going to go ahead and place that. So I place the sill plate. You're going to place the 2x6 below the window. In this particular example, I don't have a window, but if I go back to level 1, I could adjust this to go through the window, And then if I go back to this view, I now have a window, which I double click that detail view, that window's there. So I can create similar on the same detail component, use my space bar, get it into the position that I want, and now I have a 2x6 under that window. Now what we can do is we can go in and do annotate insulation. So we can come in here and go to annotate insulation right here. And we want to set the width to 5.5. And we're going to place the insulation and drag our mouse. This is called a repeating detail. So we're going to select here and just draw up. That's pretty cool because we get a lot of detail that we're looking for. So at this point, everything's in place. The next step is to create a detail section from our wall section. So we created this wall section. Now we want to create a detail section. So we're going to go View, Call Out, and we want to choose Detail View. And we're going to detail and place it at the wall slab area to create a footing detail. So we're going to basically place this right here. And we're going to pick the call out. And you could right click it, so you could select it, right click, go to view. And now we're in that detail view. Now you'll notice that none of the stuff we drew is in there. That's because it's two-dimensional components. So we did create a detail call out, and so that did create a detail view. We will want to call this footing detail. And we'll get into a little bit more on the naming and all of this. This is the wall section of section 4 for that call out from section 4. But we do know that this is a detail view and it did sub-detail it. So one thing to note is that even though I did a call out here, it's not going to pull in this information. And that's important because this is all two-dimensional line work. So that's the flaw with some of the two-dimensional line work is you're drawing very much similar to how you drew in AutoCAD, but you're adding detail over the model. So what'll end up happening is if you move this wall, this information won't follow along with it. And so it gets a little hairy with this stuff, but if you start to understand detailed drafting views and things like that, it'll adjust it a lot better. But 2D details are view specific. There is a little trick to bringing them over without recreating them. We're going to go back to the wall section call out. So we're going to go back to this, which we're in. And what we want to do is select the 2D elements that we want. So we're going to select this, holding the control key, this and this. And I'm going to hit modify, copy. And I'm going to go back to the detail view, which is here. And I'm going to go paste aligned to selected or to current view. And now it's in place. And so that is pretty cool because it's aligned to the same place from the last view. So the scales of the drawings were different, but it still worked. The Revit detail components are not completely dumb. So a note is that if you have another folder entry in the project browser called detail views, so we kind of went over that and named it footing detail. We're going to go into that detail view, which we're in, and we're going to left click in white space, and you'll notice the properties to the left. You'll also notice identity data, so we're going to scroll down here, and title on sheet is in here. We're going to say, using capitals, EXT FTG at east wall, enter, and that'll update the title on the sheet. This changes the title without renaming the view, which is helpful for drawing coordination. So this is considered detail 0. So if we wanted to, we could rename this back to detail 0, and that won't affect the title on sheet. It'll only affect the view in the project browser. So we're good. We're all caught up there. Now we want to bring in an anchor bolt to attach the foundation to the wall. So we're going to go to Annotate, Component, and we want to load Family. And detail components are a little hard to find. So we're going to go to detail items, metals, and we want to look for common work results for metals, metal fastenings, and we're going to look for an anchor bolt side, hook side, anchor bolt, hook side, this guy. And we're going to hit open, and we want the 5/8 inch anchor bolt. And we're just going to come over here and we're going to place it roughly where it goes. And I'm going to hit the space bar. Space bar is not doing anything, but I can mirror this detail component. So we can actually place this, and then I could flip the side of it, oops, by mirroring it. So if I hit mirror, I don't want to create a copy, but I want to mirror it from the center. It'll place it where I want it. So from there, we've gone in and we've placed the anchor bolt hook side. We want to make it 10 inches long, so we can actually adjust the length to be 10 inches. And we'll leave the hook length where it's at. And then we can use the arrow keys to get it fit in place. So I showed you how to mirror it. I didn't show you these bars, but you can adjust the length with these bars. So it's a parametric two-dimensional detail. And so you can really adjust values and kind of get it to work the way that you want. You can create your own parametric families of these details as well, but we're not going to get into that for the extent of this lecture. But at least you have an idea of how to adjust these values to get them to fit within the confines of the way we're drawing them. So I'm going to place these in there. These are super powerful tools. And now what we want to do is go to rebar, annotate. So we're going to go rebar, annotate. So they had a rebar area, but we want to go to annotate component, and we're going to hit detail component, load family. We're going to go back up to detail items, and we want to look for concrete, and we want to look for reinforcing steel, and then reinforced bar section. And we're going to choose this one and hit open. And now we're going to use green lines to align and place. So essentially I'm going to just eyeball where I want these, but I'm going to place it here, and I'm using these green lines to just kind of place them in. So now I've got some rebar in there. So those have just been placed. Now we want to edit the sweep. The architect made a mistake telling you to go down 2 foot 6 inches. It should have been 1 foot 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to wall section 5, not building section 5. We want to go to wall section. So this should actually be a wall section. So you can adjust the value. Notice that it was set as a building section, but I just moved it to a wall section. In here, we can adjust this setting. So we can edit in place. I can edit the sweep. I can select the profile and edit the profile. And I can change this value to be 1 foot 6. And I want to make sure that this value is set to 1 foot. So perfect. So we're going to hit green check, green check, green check. And now that update has been made. We're going to go back to detail 0, and it's been updated in that detail 0. It's also been updated in section 4's callout as well. So it's all up to date. So all of your sections are up to date. Everything's good. Now we want to load a break line component. So we're going to go to annotate, component. We're going to check to make sure it's not loaded already. It's not. So we're going to load family. We're going to go to detail items again. So up a couple folders. Division 1 general, break line. And we want to put the break line inside of detail 0. So for detail 0, if I zoom into detail 0 and I hit CM, sorry, not CM, it is a detail component. So we're going to hit detail component, spacebar, and we're going to place it. And now you'll notice that this breaks the detail for us. So I can click and drag that, and that's in place. I can also rotate these. So I hit spacebar and it rotates. So we want to show the detail component folders so that you guys know how to get familiar with them. You want to go through them and understand what variables you can pull in. You can look and create repeating details for brick. You can create legend components for details as well. So go through here, load families, and explore what these detail items are, and you can really dive in and get a lot of very helpful information to spruce up your wall sections and details. So we're going to put some ground in. We won't use the existing topo here. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the existing and VH it. And we're going to turn line weights on. So they are on. This is what it looks like with them off. This is what it looks like with them on. We want to go into filled regions. So we're going to go to filled region. And it's under the annotate tab. So let me quickly go back. Annotate filled region. And we want to create a line style. So we're going to use, from this line style, invisible lines. And then this is so you can't see the outside lines of the filled region. And then in the properties, we're going to edit the type, and we're going to duplicate it. And we're going to call it Brian's Earth. You can call it whatever your name is, Earth. And then we'll hit OK. And then we're going to pick the fill pattern. We want to make sure it's set to drafting. And we're going to look for the Earth pattern. So just scrolling up, there's Earth, hit OK. And we're going to create the region where we want our Earth to be. So in this particular example, I could do a spline. And then I could switch to a line. Oops, select the line, draw, and then I could do another bit of a spline. And I can come outside of the view extents if I want. And I'm just kind of using a spline right now, and I'm ending that. And this probably needs to be a little bit out. So if I select the spline line, I can kind of adjust these values and then hit finish. And then what you'll notice is the Earth is in there, and it's drawn how I want it. Now, you don't want this to appear this way. So I could delete a couple control points here. And I really want this to slope away from the building, because if you have water sloping towards the foundation, it's just not correct. So we'll edit this boundary and just continue to kind of refine that so that it's sloping away from the building. So we're going to hit finish. Now let's add some notes. We're going to hit annotate, text. So I've been using the quick access toolbar up here. You could also type in TX. And once you've done that, we're going to start labeling some things. So I'm going to use these leaders, using 1/8 inch aerial, but I want to use 3/32. And we're going to pick 2 segments for the leader. So we're going to go from here to here to here. And I'm going to call this 5-inch conch slab. Make sure your caps lock is on. And I'll just click out of it, and I'll continue going through. I'm going to get the insulation labeled up. We're going to call this R19 bat insulation, and then 2 by. Okay, so don't freak out. What happened was this annotation crop hid the view. So if that happens to you, there's a little barrier when you select this grid, and it'll show where that value is. So I'm going to just kind of give myself some space here. And we're going to right-click, create similar, and I'm going to do the next one. And notice I'm using the green arrows to kind of align everything. 2 by 6 treated sill plate. And we'll call this one, it's just continuing the command. So really simple. 5/8 inch by 10 inch anchor bolt. And then we're going to do the next one to the rebar. Same thing, lining it up using the green lines. 2, number, not dollar sign, number 4, rebar, minimum 6" from finish, floor finish, FL. All right. Now I showed you the crop region. I showed you the annotation crop. Now text can disappear even if it's there. So you saw that a little bit, so it's gone. Just make sure you know that you have an annotative crop. That can also hide other areas. Now, these particular layouts of what's done on section 4 were assigned to not detail 0, but to call out 1 section 4, I believe. Let's go to that. So they were supposed to be here. So like we saw in the beginning, it's not difficult. What we can do is we can copy these, Control C. We can go back to section 4 and paste aligned to current view. And things are going to get a little wonky and they're going to look like they're not there, but they are. And that's because the view scale here is smaller than the last. So we can just pull some things out and kind of adjust some values. And you'll notice that we have everything we're looking for. The only thing I'm missing is that anchor bolt. So go back to detail 0, and I'm just kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm just drawing it on one, going back to that call out, pasting a line to the current view. Because they're 2D, they're view specific, and just like that, I've updated the value of that section. So let's see all the drawings you've created. We're going to hit Control Tab and kind of cycle through. So we've done quite a few. We've done a lot, actually. 9 total views for this lecture. So window tile will display all the drawings on the screen. So if you hit WT, we'll do that from if you hit this drop down here, we can find that detail, and we'll hit WT, and you can see all the views that we've created. You can middle mouse button in the center of these as well, and it'll view extents them. So if I'm middle mousing in the center, I'm just kind of viewing all of what I've done. So I've gotten a lot of work done. So remember, each of these drawings are all part of the same file. They're all tied together as a database of information. You've learned how to create detail views, apply 2D detail components to sections and detail views, how to create filled regions, and add dumb text annotation. And we'll explain what I mean by that later. So we're going to go ahead and save this as revit2020. So file, save as, project, revit2019demo20. And I will see you in the next lecture.